Hey, welcome to the podcast Domination Show, where we help you launch, grow, monetize, and dominate the podcasting space. This is a show where we believe that if you can get attention with your podcast, you can influence someone. And if you can influence someone, you can get them to take massive action. And if you can get someone to do that, you, my friend, can dominate. I'm Luis Diaz, your host and founder of Podcast Domination, and I'm your guide. Let's go. Hey, so I know you're probably wondering, why is Luis interrupting his own podcast? Well, guess what? I have a little secret for you. And I'm not going to whisper this entire commercial, but I just wrote a book called How to Get 100,000 Downloads in 100 Days, and I want to give it to you for free. Now, this book is going to be on sale on Amazon probably for about $20 or $30. We'll see. But I want to give it to you for free because you are listening to this episode and this podcast, and I appreciate that very, very dearly. So all you have to do to get a free book, a free copy of my book, a physical book if you're in the US, and if you're in the outside of the US, then I will give you a free Audible book version and a free Kindle or ebook version as well. Okay, so here are the steps. Ready? All you have to do is leave a review in the iTunes store for the podcast. If you think it's worthy of 5 stars, I really appreciate it, but I value honest feedback. So leave a review, screenshot it, and tag me on Instagram. My handle is @LuisRyanDiaz, LuisRyanDiaz. Tag me with the book review, and then I'll DM you, or someone from my team will DM you, to ask for your address. And I will send you a copy of my book. Maybe write a little note in there to say thank you. And we'll go from there. So if that sounds good to you, leave a review, and I'll see you on Instagram. Thanks. Now back to the show. My name is Luis Diaz, and if you're new to the show, then welcome. This is a show where we talk about how to grow, monetize, scale, distribute, and dominate. I know there's a lot of things right there, right? But basically how to take your show from where it's at to where you want to go with it, right? Growing in both numbers and downloads and listens, and then also hopefully revenue and new leads and new customers for your business. Today we're going to be talking about the know, like, and trust factor, also known as the KLT factor. So what that is, this became apparent to me this past weekend, was that the market is getting really sophisticated, right? They don't want to they're getting smarter. The old things that once worked in your marketplace or when you were selling something, the old sales page, the old sales copy doesn't work anymore, or it's not converting as effectively, or I'm sure you're probably seeing higher ad spend or higher cost to drive people through that funnel or through that to that marketing message, wherever you're trying to get them to. And for me, one way I feel like a tool you can use to drive costs down and to increase your conversions is by increasing your KLT factor. So today we're going to talk about 2 ways you can increase that. Before we get into the 2 ways of how you increase your KLT factor, it's important to understand why. And I just explained one of them, and that was market sophistication. People are getting smarter. They don't fall for the same things. We're not trying to trick them, but they're not as forthcoming with their money. They don't want to part ways with their money because they've been screwed before, or they've had a bad experience, or they've heard the same old before and it didn't work out for them, right? So sophistication, they're getting smarter. That's number 1. Number 2, why KLT is important, especially on a podcast, I think it can drive costs down. I'm really sold on the fact that if you use a podcast as a prospect, what did I call it before? It's basically like a relationship building tool, right? So you have someone who you've just met, or they just got introduced to your brand, and now you use your podcast to massage the message, to get them to know, like, and trust you, and for them to hopefully make a purchasing decision in the future much easier and cheaper than driving ads to that person. So that's why the podcast is. That's another reason. The next reason is because the marketplace is noisy. There are so many more people in the marketplace now, even on podcasting, as compared to 2, 3, 4 years ago when I started. Like, for instance, like my show, the downloads grew way faster in my first show. And it's because there's less people in the marketplace, right? Also, it was a lot less sophisticated back in 2016. There wasn't as many people online. There's a lot less competitors, right? So it's a lot noisier now. And then last but not least, I touched on this before, but the fact of the matter is people have been screwed, people have been lied to, people have been ripped off, people have been, completely burnt for their money. So people are a lot more hesitant to put money into a course, put money into a coach, put money into a product, put money into a service than they were years and years ago, right? 2, 3, 4 years ago, there was a lot less online courses, webinars, a lot less any kind of masterclass, all that crap. A lot less of that stuff. Now, it seems like everybody online has all those things in a podcast. So the 2 ways we're going to share today to increase your KLT factor are going to help you basically overcome all those things, right? The know, like, and trust factor. Way number 1 or tactic or strategy number 1 is to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable is not fun. Sharing what you screwed up on, sharing your mistakes, sharing what you messed up on, how, like for me, like sharing like maybe like in the past, like how I lost clients, right? The mistakes I made as a producer, the things I should have known but I didn't know and it cost me money. Sharing those things, right? In your life, in your experience, in your business, sharing things that you are afraid to share and makes you a little uncomfortable, right? I would say sharing things around, like in the past, like a year ago, like I remember I lost a client because I was doing the show notes and I suck at doing show notes and I was busy at the time, made a lot of mistakes and it cost me, right? And I learned from that mistake. I learned from that lesson. I do not touch any writing things now. At least not without an editor, because that's not my strength. It's not what I should be doing. Learning from your mistakes and sharing those mistakes openly with people is going to increase the KLT factor because it shows that you're open and you're not perfect, right? A lot of times we'll see people who only share the best pictures of them. And I'm guilty as hell for this too, guys. Like, don't get me wrong. But it's important to show the other side and not be afraid of what people say or think about you. And that is super, super uncomfortable. And I think that's a huge tool you can use if you can kind of lean into that. And I know a lot of other gurus and experts talk about this too. A lot of big influencers talk about this, but this reason why they're successful is because they're not afraid to show their dark side. They're not afraid to show their less glamorous side of them. Number 1, increasing your KLT factor is vulnerability. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to be relatable. So share your story. To get more tactical, share the story of where you started on your journey. So if you are, like I know some people in our Facebook group that are experts in franchising, talk about before you had your first franchise. Talk about the fears and the questions you had during that time of your life, right? For me, I'd talk about when I first started podcasting and I didn't know anything and I was just a personal trainer trying to go online. And I sucked at video and I suck at writing. So podcasting was the only thing I could do. That is what, starting with your story, right? Start with that. If you're really not sure on how to start when you're talking about being relatable, just go back to the beginning and start there. And you'll pick up people, I feel, as you go. People will start to gravitate towards one part of your story or another part of your story. And they'll find things that you are relatable or similar to, right? For instance, I grew up in Florida, but I was born in New York. So talking about that, people might be from New York or they might live in Florida, right? So those are all pieces of the relatability puzzle. One of my early mentors, the reason why I found him is because on his podcast, he said he was in Florida. And he was actually like 45 minutes away from me. And I was like, what? So I hit him up, met him for coffee, and he was nice enough to kind of take me under his wing and show me a lot of things, show me the ropes about podcasting. And that was Scott Ardella, for anyone wondering. Being relatable. Talk about your story. Talk about early on. Talk about your mistakes. I think those are 2 big things that you can do. And it gives you more content to create because we've all got shortcomings. We've all got funny stories from our childhood. Those are the 2 things today. And I guess to back that up, when I actually first heard about this and really this became apparent to me, like I said, this weekend, but even earlier than that, it was Friday. I was speaking to a friend of mine who probably one of the most successful podcasters I know today. He's been doing it for 9 years and he's a great man, a very, very nice guy. He was gracious enough to share with me one of those tactics and he said it's helped his show grow tremendously. So that's where that came from, not just from me Googling online. It's actually from people who have done it way better. Just to give you some ideas of where that came from. And I guess to close this episode out, guys, for everyone on the Facebook group as well as everyone on the podcast, I would like for you to share one way or one thing that you think I missed in this episode or one thing that we can talk about that would also increase the KLT factor. So go in the Facebook group, post here. If you're watching this on Instagram TV, if you're watching this or listening to this in the podcast, if If you're driving like I'm always doing, do not crash, but maybe pull over, join the Facebook group if you haven't. It's called the Podcast Domination VIP Inner Circle. It's a mouthful, I know, but type that into Facebook and I'm sure you'll find it. Go in the group and share one thing, or you can always hit me up, lewis@podcastdomination.co. So that's it for today. Increase your KLT factor. Get people to actually trust you, because I truly believe that people only buy from people they trust now. If they don't trust you, it's going to be hard to have a long-term relationship. Maybe they'll buy once or twice, but they won't stick around. So for me, it's all about building trust, being vulnerable, trying to share my story, even though I'm not that good of a storyteller, as you guys can already tell. But it's a process, right? So that's it, my friends. If you haven't left a review for this show, I actually give you incentives to give reviews. So be sure to review it, screenshot it, and send it to me on Instagram or in the Facebook group, and I will give you a free copy of my book. Bye. Hey, what's up? Lewis again, and I get asked this question a lot, so I wanted to answer it here for you in a unique manner. And that question is, Lewis, what exactly do you do? How do you help podcasters? What exactly do you and what does Podcast Domination really help with? Well, instead of me sitting here and telling you all the amazing stuff about us, I thought it'd be fun and interesting for you guys to hear what our clients are saying. So here you go. Please enjoy.
Lewis literally makes my life so much easier. All I have to do is record my content. I don't have to worry about editing it. I don't have to worry about writing show notes. I don't have to create any of my graphics to promote it. He literally does everything for me.
We hired Lewis to kind of help us set up podcasts, for us to put our content out and kind of grow our brand. And all I really have to say, it's been a huge success. It's been really easy. Lewis and his whole team have made the whole process easy, from setting it up originally, which with podcasts is kind of intimidating, and there's a lot of things that if you don't know a lot about the platform, that it's very time consuming. So Lewis made all of that easy.
In the beginning, I'm not going to lie, I was completely overwhelmed, confused, stressed out, because I went on YouTube trying to figure out how to set up a successful podcast. And actually going on YouTube, I was just bombarded by so much information that I just wanted to give up on the idea. And then I met a good friend of ours that introduced me to Lewis, and we hit it off. And he just said to me, it's really, really simple. I will take care of everything for you. I think what Lewis has done for me has made it seem so painless. He has took my idea and saved me money, he's saved me time and energy, and more importantly, he's made my Persistence Factor podcast sound professional.
Well, I hope you enjoyed those sound bites as much as I enjoyed putting them together. If you have any questions about how we can help you grow, launch, or further your podcasting efforts, feel free to reach out to me at Lewis@Podcast Domination, or you can reach out to my team and ask them some questions. hello@podcastdomination.co. Both are .co. Just make sure that's, keep that in mind. Anyways, I'll see you on the next episode. And until next time, keep dominating.